Guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome back to another video of ours. This is the Premier Division season review. We're going to go through each club individually and have a look at their seasons. JP is with me and Luke is with me. What's the story, guys? You all right?
All right, that's how you.
Yeah, you still hung over, JP, you know?
Covering.
Look, you'd wonder what's in that. There's no vodka in that, I'm sure. Well done to Derry City, by the way. We'll get onto that later, though, obviously. So, yeah, we'll start off, JP, with Finn Harps. Obviously, they finished 10th in the league. Ollie Horgan started the season as manager. He's not there now. Big changes in playing staff at the start of the season. It just didn't work out for them, really, did it, in the end?
No. And I think at the start of the season, a lot of us probably expected it, but I remember sitting this time last year when UCD beat Waterford. I remember saying, well, Finn Harps will be rubbing their hands because that means they're guaranteed a playoff spot now. It didn't work out that way. They probably didn't deserve it to go as far as it did. In terms of, we went down the second last game and UCD beat them. They secured a playoff spot, and Finn Harps, in my point of view, were probably fortunate that it got that far into the season. Because I think they were pretty poor throughout the season. I think they won 4 games in the entire year. There's 2 of them against Shelbourne, Drogheda, and Sligo. And I think all 4 of them at home. I think might have won away to Tolka. I think I'm not 100%.
One was in Tolka, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And every time they got a win, we kept thinking, right, this is going to kick them on, and it didn't. And I think, and we spoke about this before in previous shows, a very telling point was whenever they were 2-0 down against Pats in Richmond and they got to go back in the 23rd minute or something like that. And you'd have thought it was a 93rd minute consolation goal. And that told me that this team didn't believe in themselves.
Was it a case, JP, that simply the squad wasn't good enough this season?
Absolutely.
Squad, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The squad of players wasn't good enough. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You've Alexa player boys that was there before, Alexa Ethan Boyle, Mark Connolly, Barry McNamee, and then they brought in Mihailovic, Eric McWoods. McWoods apparently in the Brandywell earlier in the season was unbelievable. He ran Derry ragged apparently that night. But unfortunately for Finn Harps, it was only flashes. It wasn't sustained periods from anybody.
And defensively, JP, they conceded 71 goals in the league.
Yeah, that was, and that's not a Finn Harps team to be on under Ollie Horgan, is it really? Now they did lose Webster early on in the season, and they never really recovered defensively. So he was a huge loss, and then it just didn't. But not only that, you wonder how much of a loss Paul Hegarty was as well, in the sidelines, because it did seem to have a huge impact. It's not just on the team, but on Ollie Horgan. And I'm not saying Gavin Dykes wasn't a good replacement. We know Dykes has worked under Ollie before. He's been around the Irish League and the League of Ireland, managing different clubs. And Ollie and Paul just seemed to have that bit of a spark, bit of a teamwork that seemed to work. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, they decided to part ways, and you just wonder, did it have an impact?
Yeah, it's very hard to pick out, to be honest with you. Individual players that perform well over the course of the season. I know Ush thinks that Slevin was possibly their best player. McWoods, as you said, showed flashes of quality, but the consistency wasn't there. You know, McNamee, I know some people criticise McNamee, but to be honest with you, he was still probably one of the better players. He may not have been as good as he can be, but at the same time, in general, for me, he was one of their better players. Ethan Boyle chipped in with some goals as well, but defensively, as I said, they're poor all season. It's very difficult to pick out what you would say a really consistent performer, let alone a few of them all season.
Oh, yeah. You just touched on it there, like you would a high level scoring for a couple of games, and then they just didn't get that run of performances that we know they even when we came into the colder months in the season. You're all at Van Hars were always renowned for putting a run together, and it never
The
happened.
problem was it never really got cold.
Well, or wet either, like so. Yeah, um, it's hard to look. Ollie had a big budget. He had a bigger budget. UCD had a bigger budget in Drogheda. Um, Unfortunately for this season, it just didn't work out his recruitment. The- and when you're bringing players in from all around Europe, it's really hard to get them to jail. Especially for a part-time club as well. That they're, I don't know what way the training regime or training makeup was, and what these players were coming in, what were they doing with were Harps training 5 days a week? Were they players training 5 days a week? I don't know. Maybe someday that there's no could possibly tell us, but um, it was always doomed to failure. I think whenever they started having they go around the continent, they bring players over, and that can only work for so long. And eventually it's just gonna fall flat in its fist. And for Finn Harps, it didn't just fall flat in its fist; it just went completely wrong this year. And they've a chance now to go into the first division and reset themselves and see what they can do.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of their signs are made very late in the day, which doesn't help either. Luke, on to Drogheda United, obviously your club as well. 38 points to finish 8th in the league, 12 points ahead of UCD, comfortably stayed up, 3 points behind Shelburne in 7th. Overall, you'd have to say a very good season. Obviously, Kevin Doherty's first season in charge as manager as well. Thoughts overall on Drogheda?
Yeah, look, very pleasing, obviously. Delighted with how it went. I think, you just sort of bring it back to this time last year. We would have been sitting here saying Drogheda after finishing 7th, and there would have been the talk of who are we going to lose? Are we going to lose our back line, which turned out to be the case? Are we going to be torn apart the way we did? Lose our top goal scorer? Lose a lot of big players and lose your manager as well. It was tough, but I think Kevin came in. I think everything was against him coming in. Like he was coming in there. He was gonna have a lower budget. He was gonna have to try and replace a back five out of 6. You know what I mean? And it wasn't just a back five. Like that was the spine of Drawda's team from the season previous. You've got James Brown there, who was arguably the best right full in the country at that time. Connor Kane, who had a brilliant season. Joe Redmond was brilliant for the half a season he done with Drogheda. And then obviously Dan O'Reilly, who was fantastic as well. And then obviously David Amosu in net. So they were so reliable, and Killian Phillips as well. You know what I mean? There's just, you think of, I would have loved to have seen them again in another year at Drogheda, but obviously, they moved on to full-time football and moves abroad for some of them as well. So, look, that was always going to be tough. But then I think his recruitment, people might have questioned it at the start, bringing in the likes of Evan Weir, who was quite unknown. Andrew Quinn would have been unknown. I think Bray fans probably, and some people in the first division might have heard of him before that. Keeping a hold of the likes of Deegan, and that was obviously very important. And we'll probably touch on him in a few minutes, but what a player he was for Drogheda this season. It was always going to be tough at the start of the season. You would have been a bit worried, but to be fair, Kevin done really well with some of the players he brought in. Dale Rooney, Dean Williams all chipped in importantly. The 2 lone lads who played a big part of the season, now that you think about it, they did. Sam Long and Sean Rowan, 2 very important players for the half of the season they were with Drogheda. So yeah, look, we were very pleased with the recruitment, and obviously picked up some very important points. I think the away form is probably wasn't the best, but the home form was something. It was brilliant. Like the wins against Shamrock Rovers, the wins against 2 wins at home against Dundalk, taking points off Derry, both up in the Brandywell and in Head in the Game Park. Wins against Shells at home, wins against Finn Harps. That I think the ones that really stand out to me was I don't know if you remember, but the Friday draw they played against Finn Harps, 1-0 down, only 15 minutes to go, and they came back and won the game 3-1. Sean Rowan was sent off, and then Foley comes on, gets a goal and gets an assist. And then obviously then the Monday they played against Shamrock Rovers and won the game 1-0. So they were very important 6 points. And it really breeded confidence then from then in, you know what I mean? So they picked up points along the way, important points. Kevin and Dara done an absolute unbelievable job. Like unbelievable working what they had, and the players that they brought in done really, really well. And look, it was a brilliant season. And I know, look, there's a lot of Drogheda fans who are constantly wanting to know the update and what's going to happen next season. And I think I think it remains to be seen in the next couple of days / weeks. So we'll see how that turns out. And look, hopefully it's some really positive news in the next couple of weeks, and we can really start looking forward to the next season. But overall, very pleased with the season. Part-time, probably the lowest budget in the league to finish comfortably safe. The away win against Bows to stay up, which sort of added the icing on the cake for the season. Couldn't have asked for any more, really.
Best performers of the season?
Gary Deegan by a country mile. Gary Deegan, lads, just unbelievable. Week in, week out, turning up. You know what I mean? Just a real enforcer in the midfield. And you could tell the games he was suspended for the sending off against Rovers. I think if he hadn't got that red card against Rovers, he would have been I think it would have been him and Joe Redmond would have been fairly close for the most minutes in the league. I think they were pretty close coming into that towards that run in. So I think they probably would have ran each other close for most minutes this season.
That's impressive, to be honest, for an older player and a midfield player.
Oh, absolutely! Like he's so important to the way Drogheda play. You know what I mean? It's just his work rate. It's second to none, really. And at the age he's still going and he's still playing to a really, really high level. Drogheda's Player of the Year and Fans Player of the Year and Club Player of the Year, which says enough for me, really. He stood up this season and just an excellent player, and I definitely would be hoping that he'd be one of the players tied down for next season, because he's a very important player, and I still think he has it in him to go again. So really, really hope that he does. And obviously you've got the likes of Evan Weir, who've done really well, Andrew Quinn, Dean Williams popped in with a few important goals. Dale Rooney's performance as well, I thought, went really under the radar throughout the season. So I think everyone stood up, and I think the whole squad can be really proud of the season they did have.
Yeah, satisfying season for Drogheda. JP, UCD finishing 9th. Not only did they finish 9th, they won the battle against Finn Harps, but they won the war against Waterford.
Yeah, for the second year in a row as well. And for the second year in a row, they've done it as underdogs, even though they were in the Premier Division this year. I have to give UCD an A-star for this season. I know it's probably some to probably say, well, how can you do that for a team that lost 22 matches this season, finished second bottom? But the reality is they got promoted from, I think, in 5th position last year.
They weren't expected to promote at all.
Weren't expected, totally against all the odds. And then nobody gave them a chance this year. Everybody had them written off before the season kicked off. They were going to be cut adrift. It was going to be between Finn Harps and Drogheda to see who was going to finish 9th, and UCD were ready to finish in 10th. And we saw from the first few weeks of the season that UCD were going to be hard to beat. It was whether they could get the wins or the points on the board that they needed. And it took a while for that to happen, but it did. I think they got, was it 7 points in the month of October, plus the playoff one. So it was an absolutely fantastic season for them. And what makes it even better was they started the season with Liam Kerrigan, Colin Whelan, and
Eric Yarrow. Yeah.
Eric Yarrow.
Yeah.
And all we know Kerrigan went to Italy, Whelan done his knee, and Euro went to Bolton. So they lost three players that was very much part of their starting 11.
At that point,
Part of
nearly
the,
would have thought that was it, particularly with the injury to Whelan. You thought, they're gone
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because you don't know in their situation who's there, like for them, like who can they go and get and bring in? But they obviously had the likes of Dylan Duffy, Tommy Lonergan. I think Michael Gallagher then came in and played at right back. Um, them three players were just as good in the second half of the season for them as what the other three were in the first half. And then you've Sam Todd, who's a League of Ireland stalwart at centre back, who's an absolute um machine, and one that Andy Myler and Wally O'Connor would be absolutely delighted they've had. No doubt they'll look to keep him. I think he might have another year to go at UCD in his scholarship. Not sure, but they'll definitely want to hang on to him if they can. And then you've likes of Jack Keeney, and other players as well who I think there's guy Sean Brennan. I watched him in the Brandywell a few weeks ago, and he was brilliant. He once he got the ball, he always wanted to get forward with. There was none of this looking to see who he could pass. They just wanted to drive forward with it. And you have to take your hat off to UCD. And I seen the nominations for Premier Division Manager of the Year this year was Stephen Bradley, Rory Higgins, and Andy Myler. And for me, Andy Myler deserves to be on that list. Even if he doesn't win it, he deserves to be on it because the job that he's done this year. And I'll go back to it. I remember the the League of Ireland launch, Premier Division launch show that they did, and all the managers were there in their club tracksuits and whatever, and Andy Miller landed in a suit because he landed in a suit because he was coming from his break and work, and you have to take your hat off to him. Absolutely fantastic job he's done, and look, it might sound stupid whenever I said at the start of the discussion that I was giving them an A star because they finished ninth, but they're getting an A star because of what they had to negotiate this year with their team, the way they're set up, and the structure that they have is not really what you would expect from a team in a professional league. But they go and compete and stay up and beat teams that are full time. They do that. Well done, UCD.
Yeah, no, they've done brilliantly. Well said, JP. Luke Shelburne, Damien Duff Shelburne, obviously finishing 7th in the league, 41 points.
Yeah.
Job done for them. They'll be a little bit disappointing with the performance in the FAI Cup final, but thoughts on them over the season? They started slowly, you could say, under Duff, but you could argue generally they got better as the season went on, could you?
Yeah, you could. Look, I think they'll be overall pleased with the season. I know, look, some of the players are watching this at the moment. They probably still have a bit of a sour taste in their mouth from the other day. It was a horrible feeling for them to have probably lost that cup final, but not even just the way they obviously losing the cup final, probably in the manner they lost the cup final, just didn't turn up on the day. And when you don't turn up on the day against a team like Derry, you're going to get punished, and you're going to get punished in the way you did. So, yeah, look at their season. At the start, obviously, look, Duff coming in was sort of it sort of gravitated eyes towards the league, I think, from people as well outside the league, and I think it also gravitated eyes on Shelburne. You know what I mean, from neutral fans. You know what I mean, that aren't even Shelburne fans. And look, that's natural when you've got someone who is with as big a name as Damien Duff coming into the league, and it was a good moment for the league. I thought when Duff came in because it shows that these managers and. Look, I know there was names thrown around, the likes of Richard Dunn and that were thrown around earlier on the season when Bows were looking for a manager, to come in as a Bows manager. And I've seen other names as well been mentioned before to linking them to other jobs and that. So it's good to see that there is interest from these managers, from these names to come into the league and to coach a team. And look, Duff I think he wears his heart in his sleeve, to be honest with you. It's I know he might not be everyone's cup of tea and that, and he's done some things throughout the season and all, but look, he's done a good job there. You know what I mean? He's done a really, really good job there. They started slow. Everyone was saying, where is the goals going to come from in this Shelburne team. I was one of the people saying it. I was like, there's no way that they are going to score that many goals with, I wasn't convinced about Sean Boyd initially. I wasn't convinced about Dan Carr, to be honest. So I was a bit like, where are the goals going to come from this Shell team? Obviously, Moylan stepped up very importantly for Shells as the season went on. I think Sean Boyd, look, he's had a great season, like a really, really good season. And look, I know he didn't get much joy in the cup final. I think Connolly done a serious job on him, to be honest. But I think he had a great season. He chipped in with some very important goals, and he did kind of help Shelburne get to that cup final. Like, you look at that semi-final that day, quarter final, sorry, against Bohemians, and like, he ran amok. Like, he really ran amok. And I think I remember saying that to you, Keith. I think it was the second goal he scored. Do you remember when he nicked it off and he bet another lad, and that was ridiculous. Like, so very important player he was for Shells, and the way they played, was Shelburne, I noticed, was they could afford to sort of get the ball into Boyd, because he can hold it up. He can hold off most defenders in the league, and that was the way they sort of went about their approach. Getting the ball into Boyd, and I know they done it in the final. They done it quite a lot, actually, and it just didn't work. Like, it was to do with Derry's game plan and all, and a lot of teams this season couldn't deal with that. And look, it did help Shelburne. He was a big player, and then obviously they've tied him down for next season. So yeah, he's a big player for Shelburne, and he had a great season. So he'd definitely be one of the standout performers. But look, even the younger lads that come through there, they Shells have a fantastic academy. You've got your likes of Malloy and all who come through, Hideki, McManus,
Negru now as well.
Negru at the back, yeah. So they had a nice mix, I thought, between younger lads and experienced lads. The likes of Connor Kane getting out of there was a brilliant sign, and I know he picked up a tough injury and all, but I'm hoping that he can come back from that, because he's a fantastic player. He's a great player to watch as well. He's just you constantly on the edge of your seat when you're watching Connor Kane, I feel, because you just he's going to get forward, and he'll get crosses into the box, and he's a big player for the way Shelburne played. He was a big player for the way Drogheda played, so he's a big player. And you've got the likes of even Luke Byrne at the back, who had a great season. Captain, he really stood up as well at important times during the season. Brendan Clark, who announced today he won't be with Shells next season, a fantastic goalkeeper as well. And look, I know they had the lone lad Webb in, and don't really think he didn't really adapt to the League of Ireland, to the very best. So look, it was a great season for Shelburne. Cup final, they would have been delighted to get there, and they'll be really disappointed with their performance. And I know Duff did say at the end of the game that, is that the best Shelburne? No, it's not, because we've seen a lot of really good stuff from Shelburne this season. So look, they had a good season. That was really it. Like, but they'll be pleased with how it finished, and they'll be pleased that they stayed up, and they go again next year, and they're going to have more investment there. Seeing that the Southampton owners as well are in advanced talks, so that'll be a big, if they can come in, and it'll give them a bit more of a boost. And I'll be interested to see what sort of recruitment and how that goes now this season. And can Shelburne go up another gear, and can they start contesting higher up the table and start pushing towards them European spots? Who knows? But look, they've stayed up, and it's a big job done by Duff, and people will say, people will give him a lot of criticism, but he's done a really good job there, and he's got early signs of being a really good manager as well, I think.
Who's your player of the season, your opinion? Sean Boyd, is it you're going for, was it?
No, I'm going to go with Jack Moylan.
I'm
going to go with Moylan, just for the way he started off the season. I think he was very consistent, to be honest, just very, very consistent. I think it was from the first game, that game against Pats on RT, and I know Pats won 3-0, but he was brilliant that night. And I remember watching him. I was saying, how have Bowles let this lad go? And I said it throughout the season. How did they let him go? And then obviously he got a goal in the semi-final, quarter-final against them. So big player for Shells, and definitely player of the year.
I'll give Shane Farrell an honourable mention as well.
Yeah, big fan of the show.
I know he's very good
big
this
fan
season
of the show.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. He's fantastic. He had a really good season. Look, he's raw, so he likes to get at teams. He's a good player.
Yeah. Sligo Rovers, JP, obviously started the season. Actually, the start of the season like a house on fire, and Sligo fans were telling us they were challenging for the title and giving out to me when I said they weren't going to challenge for the title. But seriously, strange season for Sligo, to be honest. Which obviously Liam Buckley was there, and after qualifying for 2 years in a row in Europe, he lost his job essentially, mutual consent, but he lost his job in reality in May, and John Russell came in. They had that European adventure. They so many ups and downs this season, JP, didn't they, Sligo? And ultimately finished fifth, mid-table.
They did. It's very disappointing season overall for them. If you take out the European run, which was fantastic for them, like the extra bit of cash in it.
Even that run was strange because they were nearly beaten by Ballatown, and
Yeah, they needed a penalty shootout to get past them.
Ed McGinty saved the day,
And
really, there.
if it wasn't for Ed McGinty, they would have been out. Then they went to Motherwell and played Motherwell over 2 legs and never conceded a goal, which was fantastic for them. And then they played that Norwegian team. Now, no matter once you got into that stage of the tournament, it was always going to be a difficult draw. And unfortunately for Sligo, they got a really, really good team. And look, we thought last year they limped over the line whenever it came they finished in third, which they did do. But as you say, they started the season off like a house on fire, and unfortunately, I go back to that game at Tallaght. They were 2-0 up against Rovers, and they threw away a 2-goal lead. I think it finished 2 each. And Rovers' season just seemed to go that way, and Sligo's just went that way. And had they hung on that night, you don't know what kind of season they would have had. And that was just probably a turning point for them, because that was early in the season. It was, and then as you say, Liam Buckley was away by May. John Russell then comes in. He has to negotiate a month or two before he can bring that, and without he did that not without a few hiccups, but that the guy from Leipzig was signed and couldn't even kick a ball because of a mix up in the paperwork or something. So as you say, just the top roller coaster of a season, really topsy turvy. And all, they probably will be disappointed but delighted, and not delighted but happy with a fifth place finish. John Russell now will use the off season to see what he needs and who he can get to just build and try and get closer to the likes of some Pats. And like once they went out of the FAI Cup in the first round of Wexford, I felt that was their season finished, because I didn't think they were going to get past the Norwegian team. And unfortunately, after that, then it was just about trying to stay fifth or whatever. And you don't want that. You want to be competing right into the top, either finishing fourth or in the cup or whatever. And they'll be disappointed in that sense, but they'll want to use they finished 12 points off fourth, and they'll really want to cut that gap for next season.
Yeah, I suppose the one shining light to have, a bit like Bowes last season, the way, the Georgie Kelly, but they finished outside European places. So the key is not to have the top scorer in the league, because you're going to finish outside the European places if you do. Because Keane was brilliant this year, 21 goals in all competitions. Brilliant performer for them, but wasn't enough for Sligo. 47 goals Sligo got in the league, and I think Keane got 18 goals.
Yeah,
wasn't it in the league?
18.
You know what I mean?
Fantastic signing. I think Buckley brought him back. I think Liam had him at Pats too, didn't he?
Yeah, early doors,
so, yeah. So he knew all about him. He obviously, with anybody that didn't know him, was looking at the list of clubs that he had in Scotland, and they were just literally labeling him as a journeyman, and he's coming here to put his feet up and blah blah blah, and he done everything but. He was there, got an early goal. I think he got a hat trick against Van Herps, didn't he, early on? He just seemed to brim with confidence from that moment forward. 18 goals. And you just wonder where Sligo would have finished if they didn't have him. Like they finished fifth with him. Where would they finish without him? And a fantastic player, fantastic signing. Sligo will no doubt be delighted that they still got him under contract for another year. but I think they're going to probably maybe have a couple of bids coming their way from a certain couple of League of Ireland clubs because
UCD and Finn Harps, is it?
possibly
Draw.
but
Well, you never know, Luke, in a week or two.
but look, Sligo will no doubt do everything in their power. They try and hold on to him and maybe build a team around him for next year. And um, but that is the key is that he's still there for another year, so they hold the trump card in that sense. And I'm sure Aiden's the kind of boy that will respect that and just sort of go with flow and see what happens. But for me, Sligo finished where I thought they probably would have finished anyway, Keith. I don't think they had the squad to
Just
compete
the
with.
points total will be more disappointing than the actual
Yeah,
finish, nearly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the league table and I'm actually surprised that they didn't even hit the 50 mark. A team that finishes fifth and they've only 49 points. It's usually unheard of, like really, isn't it? And um, I think Derry finished fourth last year with 15-8 or something.
Mm.
I'm not 100%. So
In around that, yeah.
um, I think you're right. It's more set the points total rather than the position because a wee bit more consistency, and they really could have reeled some Pats in and pushed them as for fourth spot as well. But I think any team that gets a good start in the season, their fans tend to be a wee bit overjoyous and belief, and then they're hit them with a sense of reality at some point in the season. And I think for Sligo, it came like a bus. It just hit them full steam ahead, and um, they they never recovered, really, did they?
No, Luke, Bohemians, they finished sixth in the league, 46 points, 3 points behind Sligo. And they obviously started the season with Keith Long. Eventually, Keith Long left the club after 8 years at the club as well. Started the season kind of okay, if you know what I mean. They were in the European hunt earlier in the season. Now, it's easy to be in the hunt earlier in the season because there aren't that many points gone. But the likes of Dawson Devoy there, and I always felt with Devoy kind of kept them in games and kept them maybe that bit of quality that was maybe winning games, etc., etc. As soon as he left, players came in, and they generally weren't that great. You know what I mean? The mix and the balance wasn't there, apart from maybe James Clark. But again, similar to Sligo in a way, disappointing season for Bows. Nothing really there as such, was there? It's hard to really explain it. But Keith Long going, Declan Devine coming in as well.
People are probably going to think I'm going to probably slate balls here, but it is a tough one to analyze because started the season all right, as you said, and even with the likes of Dawson and Promise, you know what I mean. They had quality, and them sort of players, they only really needed half a chance, and they were sort of winning games for Bows, and they were chipping in at that time of the season, and from then obviously when you lose them and you get them taken away from you in so early in the season, and you've got your goalkeeper who gets a bad injury early around the middle of the season as well, and who misses the rest of the season. And look, I know that he's a good goalkeeper, Talbot, but I also think he's a bit of a leader for Bows. You know what I mean? I think obviously they lost Buckley at the start of the season, and they didn't really have anyone then after that were, and Cornwall obviously as well were two big losses, and they didn't really have anyone then who were going to really step up as a leader. So he was probably the closest thing to it, really. Because I think they had like four different captains throughout the season. To be honest with you, like I think nearly it was like they were sharing it around every game, like you do with under nines or something. Do you know what I mean? But honestly, like it was an interesting season, tough one for them. I'm sure there's a lot of Bows fans who are pleased it's over and pleased that they can hopefully look forward to better times under Decky Devine. And to be honest, I hope it does. I hope they do because they're a big club, and they've got really good fans and fans who still turn up every week despite even if things are going bad. And look, I know their fans get frustrated when they're not winning, and like any fan, you wouldn't be happy if your team's not winning. And I think Bows have sort of standards for themselves in the last couple of seasons. They've had really quality players, and um, they've lost them, and that's very disappointing for them, because I'm sure Bows don't want to be a feeder club. They want to be a club that's, taking these lads in, and they're keeping them, and they're keeping hold of them, and they're tying them down to longer deals, and they're being able to hold on to these lads. And look, I know that they're doing it, and I don't know how many, but I still think there is some of them lads from the team at the minute who are still tied down for next season, which will be tough to move on, of course. So look, Devine has a tough job ahead of him. He does, and look, I know we've got the likes of Liam Burton, all Ali Q, a few other lads who don't know what they're going to do as well. It's a big job ahead of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of Bows fans that are happy this season is over. They can look ahead to a new year, and for a better 2023, because look, 2022 for Bohemians was.
Do you think it was the right time to get rid of Keith Long as such? Because it's likely he would have left at the end of the season, and when he left the club, it didn't look like they're going to get into Europe anyway at that point.
Yeah, look, I can see probably the positives of both, sort of positives and negatives of getting rid of him. At that time, you know what I mean? Like, at the time, it probably was the right decision, and now you're looking back at it again, he probably would have left at the end of the season. So, getting a fresh face in, and I know they went through a very long process of finding that manager, and
yeah,
they went through a lot of managers, and we've seen a lot of different stories about the likes of Ian Ryan and all, you know what I mean, turning down the job, and a few other managers turning down the job. So it was sort of a thing of who is going to take the job, and Decky Devine is taking it, and you obviously wish him. Look, I hope that he does well, and he's got a tough job ahead of him, of course, and I'm sure he knows that himself. So he won't need many people to tell him that. But yeah, look, probably was the right thing to do to get rid of Keith Long at that time. That type of way.
Now, this is a difficult one for Bows, I think. Very difficult one. But who would you say was the
Yeah.
best performer of the season?
Like, it's very hard, but I probably have to just say James Clark, to be quite honest. Just when he came in, he obviously left Drogheda, done really well with Drogheda, but wasn't really a standout performer for Drogheda. He was, doing well, but he wasn't a standout performer. But when he went into Bows, he really stood up, and he was fantastic. So yeah, probably James Clark.
Yeah, JP, Dundalk finished third in the league. Very messy season the season before. Steve O'Donnell comes into the club, new ownership into the club. Still had a lot of experience there, like Sahoob and Leahy, players like that, Sloggett, brought Benson back and Mountney. So a lot of experience there. Third in the league, qualified for Europe. Very good season for Dundalk, considering where they were last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, because this time last year there was just no foresight then to where they were heading, like, really. Peak six were trying to get rid of the club, and it was all about who was going to come in, and I think eventually it wasn't it the guys who was there before came in and
Yeah.
took over, and
Sports, yeah.
appointed Stephen O'Donnell, and he's done a fairly good job. He's touched on the players there that he managed to hold on to. Lost quite a few, like Duffy, McGlunny, Patson, Derry. Now Dundalk fans will point and say, well, they lost 10 players and still finished 81 points with Derry, and they did. But the last 4 games, Derry's mind was on the cup final, and Dundalk had 3 points handed them as well. So, fair play to them. They finished third, not joined second. They finished third. Very good season. We know from 2014 season, they've been in Europe right up until this year. So they'll be delighted. Their fans will be delighted that they're going to be back in Europe again next year. And for a club like Dundalk, it's where they need to be. It's if they want to be, they've had that sustained success. They want to get back there, and the only way to get back there is to build through getting into Europe and having a sustained period in Europe. Quite similar to what we're trying to do at Derry. You can only do it by qualifying for Europe, really. No matter how much money that your chairman puts in or whatever, you have to make sure you qualify for Europe. Otherwise, the money they're putting in, you're not benefiting from it. But fair play to them. And if it wasn't for losing Mark Conley in the summer, they quite possibly could have finished second. Could possibly went on to win the cup. That's how good Mark Connolly is, in my opinion. Totally transformed the Derry defence the second half of the season. And we saw it with Dundalk in the second half of the season with the goals and the chance, not just the goals they were conceding, but the chances they were conceding. The likes of Wexford were getting in behind them in the cup game against Wexford. They should have been out. If Wexford had a better striker, more quality. Sorry, didn't mean to say it, but more quality in the team that night. Dundalk wouldn't even have got extra time. Just shows you what they possibly lost in Mark Connolly when he went to Derry. But fair play to them. They went close to maybe dropping in the fourth spot. That lit defeat the Pats. Really did put it in the balance. But they rallied and they picked up enough of points to guarantee themselves third spot. Not even needing they rely on Derry winning the cup, and you have to take your hat off to O'Donnell. I know Pats fans won't want they, but he's gone there and he's done a very good job. He's done a very good job with Pats as well. And it's something now that Dundalk will want to build on for next year.
Best performer of the season for you?
Mark Connolly.
I knew you'd say him.
I'm not being I'm not being smart when I say that, but I've already touched on why. They were the best defensive team the first half of the season. They conceded less goals than Derry and Shamrock Rovers. The second half of the season, they conceded more goals in the overall end of the season. They've conceded more goals than Derry and Shamrock Rovers. So I think I hope that you could say they didn't even really have we touched on this as well, Keith, when we were trying to pick a team of the year. They didn't really have a standout. They had some that maybe would have played well for one or two games, won the miss game, won the MAC game. They didn't have a standout performer like they had in years gone by. The likes of Hoban, who would score 20, 30 goals. Toyle, McElhinney, Duffy, Horgan, them kind of players that they would have performed week in, week out. Dundalk didn't have that this year. They had it, I think, was it collective performances. And I think Mark Connolly was their best performer in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. St. Patrick's Athletic, I'll talk about them. I'll have to talk about something, but yeah, obviously start of the season. It's funny we're coming on to this following on from Dundalk, but it was a messy start of the season for St. Pat's, wasn't it, to be fair, with O'Donnell leaving the club, and the club owners weren't expecting that after winning the FAI Cup. Brilliant achievement. They were almost in turmoil after that. To be fair though, they got Tim Clancy in off Luke's club. Drogheda got him in fairly quickly as well. They went about the right way, I would say, Luke. To be fair, they gave Drogheda a fee.
Absolutely.
They gave them a fee as well. So, but in fairness, I think Kelleher was brilliant there in terms of being decisive and went out. Not just got a manager. It's easy to get a manager, but he went out and got a top manager. And I think I said to you, Luke, before that he would have been my choice if O'Donnell left the club. Tim Clancy, would have been my choice. So they were decisive there, but they still had a lot of work to do. And some players were signed by the club under O'Donnell's tenure, to be honest with you. And, with Clancy, it was a little bit messy for him. He comes in and who can he bring in and what kind of players I think he said 4 players are signed up from the previous year as well. So, do you know what I mean? A cup winning side, team that finished second, they 4 players signed up from the previous year. So to go on this season and to finish 4th in the league, with 61 points, they got 62 last year, only a point off the total last year. And they had Europe to negotiate this season as well, where they had a couple of good European nights, actually. The win in Mora was a fantastic performance where they fully deserved to win. They'd be a little bit disappointed because they created a lot of chances against Sofia in the the match in Tala after they won the first leg 1-0 in Sofia. That was actually a better performance than the Mora one, to be honest with you. But they'd be a little bit disappointed with that. But having had Europe, they went out in the cup to Waterford, which was a little bit disappointing. But that was bang in the middle of the Sofia games as well, to be honest. They'd beaten them 1-0 away, and it was a big trip, a long trip back. Waterford could really set their sights on Pats mentally and physically. They left out the likes of Forrester and O'Reilly. They didn't start the match, players like that. And their eyes were looking, I think, at the second leg. They got caught out. So they were beaten in the cup early doors. They're probably never going to win it twice in a row anyway. But there were some very good performers this season. Joe Redmond came in from Drogheda, and I seen him at Drogheda, and I was delighted we signed him, to be honest. But he was fantastic. He moved up a level again at Pats, to be honest. Maybe it's the full time, football as well helps there. Adam O'Reilly came in, was great. Chris Forrester was good as usual as well. And Cotter came in and was very good when he came in at that stage of the season. And I suppose they did have some results where they'd be disappointed with this season. Obviously, the defeat at home to Derry was a low point for Pats. Like, it was a really poor performance, and the night as good as Derry were. And ultimately, I think they probably had games this season where they felt like they didn't grind out enough results. Something Derry more or less did, and Dundalk certainly did. Pats didn't do that as much as they would have liked, which kind of stopped them in the end from finishing third. But they had some good results and good performances. Home to Shamrock Rovers, a very good win. A good win in Dundalk as well. And, they scored a lot of goals. They actually finished up the second highest scores in the league behind Shamrock Rovers in the end. So they had a lot of games where they scored 4 goals in, like a couple of times against Shelbourne, including a 4-4 draw, which was just crazy, that match. I was on holidays. Drogheda, of course, as well. So they did a couple of games where they did score. I was trying to avoid that, Luke. I know, but they did.
I won't.
But I heard a few people saying, some of the football wasn't great, but for me, the football was fairly good, to be honest with you. Fairly free scoring overall. And, overall, I think very satisfactory season from where you looked at the start of the season. And by the way, they improved. They got better as the season went on as well, which is always a good sign as well. They got better as the season went on. So still a lot to improve for Pats, I think, going into next season. And I think they could do that as well. But from where they were, you'd have to be very pleased with a 4th-place finish, getting into Europe, thanks to Derry City, who basically repaid the favour from last year. So I'd be, very happy. I think Tim Clancy's done a good job, and I think he's the man to keep things ticking for the future as well. And I'd be very happy with their season. On to Luke. No, JP. Back to JP, and we'll go with Derry City. Second in the league, FAI Cup final win. You have to be satisfied with that, don't you? Very satisfied with that.
Yeah, you have to be, absolutely. Over the moon with that. Rory came in April 2021. Club bottom of the table, 2 points to their name. Got them into Europe. And we've kicked on this year. Signed some quality players. Michael Duffy, Patrick McGlinny, Will Patson, Cameron Dummigan, Mark Conley in the summer. Brian Maher as well, top goalkeeper. And added to what we already had there already. Jamie McGonigal, who was signed previous season. But a very, very good squad coming into this season. Started the season relatively well. First win at home was against Shamrock Rovers, and that lit win. And that night we started to believe that we could give them a challenge. I think the challenge then came because Rovers were in Europe and the games were piling up. But to be fair to Derry, they had to forget about Rovers being in Europe. They just had to win their games, and that's what they did. Up until the Shelbourne game when both teams played at the same time, and Shelbourne done a really good performance in the Brandywell that night and restricted Derry. And I think from that game on, then it was just about concentrating on the cup. I don't think, as much as the team probably would have wanted, they push and try and push Rovers all the way. I think they probably believed after that the league was out of sight, out of reach, and they just concentrated on the cup. They just, I think it was more or less of getting players game time, keeping the squad fresh and taking over in the final 4 games and in the lead up into the cup final, and they kept their best performance of the season till the cup final. They really did. It was their most all round performance. I know the performance against. I think it was Keith. I think I know we were
Maybe
three
because
0
of
up.
the occasion, actually, more than anything,
Yeah,
because it's the cup final.
the,
Yeah.
occa- the occasion, and it was just an all-round top
Mhm.
performance. We didn't even give Shelburne a chance. Brian Maher didn't have to make a save. Shelburne didn't have a corner. Um, I, th- I think it was a better performance. I'd say the occasion, what was at stake,
Mm.
and it's like just bossed the game from start to finish. The Pats game that we played, we were really good that night. And then Shakur, um, I think, but I think we're maybe at that start of the season where you're trying to get your rhythm and stuff like that. They maybe took a foot off the gas a wee bit at certain points, but in the cup final they were just prolific from minute one. And like how can people said this at the start of the season? We'll take second and a cup run. We finished second and got a cup win, so absolutely delighted. Um, and now we've got the hunger for winning trophies, and now it's about pushing on next year and trying to go for the big one. The chairman's come out yesterday and said it that he's going for the big one, and he's laid down a marker to Shamrock Rovers. So he has, and that's what we want to hear.
A lot of very good performance for Derry this season. If you had to pick one, though.
Cameron Dummigan,
Mm.
Cameron Dummigan. He was just, as you say, there was a lot of good performances from many players. Have they meant give Mark Conley a mention because he came in halfway through the season, totally took the defence up another level to what it was. Patrick McGliney was playing a new role in the deep lying midfield kind of role, and um, adjusted there fantastically because we know we're all used to Patrick playing further forward. Um, Michael Duffy we didn't see enough of through injury, but he was magnificent on Sunday. He really was. And hopefully now to get a good pre-season under his belt and we can start the season with him in the squad next year. But for consistency from the start of the season right to the very end into the cup final was Cameron Dummigan. He played midfield, he played right back, he played left back. Um, he was just an engine. He's just an engine throughout the season. I know we picked up an injury in the middle part around June time and he was out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely magnificent. And for me, signing of the season as well.
Has Rory
And
Higgins actually exceeded your expectations, though, so far?
I think so, Keith.
Yeah.
I think the plan was to be. I think the plan when he was appointed was, I think he was given a 3.5 year contract initially. I think that's extended again. Um, and the plan was that they were going to win the league within the 3.5 years. Um, but for me, I didn't expect as they, especially when he was appointed, I didn't expect us to make Europe. So I think we were a year ahead of
Mm.
schedule in that sense.
Mm.
So this year should have been really the building year. For this year, because we qualified for Europe last year, this year then became a year ahead of schedule, if you know what I mean. So yeah, he absolutely has, and we're delighted to have him. And he said when he took the job that the only job that he would have left his role to the FAI for was the Derry City job, and we're absolutely delighted that he's there. The buzz around the city, not just the city, but the surrounding towns in the county, like say Dungiven, Claudy, Limavady. I know a few people have come in from Kilray as well, which is an hour away. So the buzz is just around there, and Rory's not a Derry city man in terms of he grew up in the city, but he's a Limavady man, which is only 20 minutes down the road, and he spent most of his footballing career with Derry, so he's a Derry man now, always will be. Fantastic manager. And you don't work for Stephen Kenny at the FAI if you haven't got the credentials. They do what he's done, and really, really looking forward now to the off season to see who he brings in. And no doubt that the next challenge he wants, and Patrick McGliney touched on it in his aftermath interview on Saturday or Sunday. was it we want to win more, and the chairman said it yesterday as well. That they're coming for Rovers for that league title.
Speaking of Shamrock Rovers, Luke, 3 titles in a row, 79 points, 13 points clear of Derry and Dundalk, 61 goals, 22 against, scored more than anyone else, conceded less than anyone else, and also had a massive European journey, didn't they? It's been a fantastic season, hasn't it, for Shamrock Rovers, and also, for Stephen Bradley, who's had to negotiate some tough times, let's say, off the field.
Absolutely, you're spot on. It was obviously a tough year for Stephen Bradley for himself, but look, obviously, Shamrock Rovers just stepped up another gear again, didn't they? They're the benchmark for everyone in the league, I think. The way they're ran, the way the management deal with the team, obviously the squad of players they have, and they're just a benchmark to what everyone wants to get to. They obviously got into the Europa Conference League, the group stages this season as well, and everyone said, can Shamrock Rovers get into a European group stages at the start of the season? And they've done it. And look, there was one or two of the games that they would have been disappointed with their performance in. But look, it's brilliant that they even got that far. And that's the good thing now about that European Conference League, is that the fact is, it gives the chance to the likes of Shamrock Rovers to get in there, and then hopefully now next season Derry can even push on and maybe get in closer to where they got to in Europe. So look, it's a brilliant season for Shamrock Rovers. They just didn't surprise me with anything. I said at the start of the season they win the league, and it didn't surprise me at the end. Maybe coming towards the end they sort of took the foot off the gas, but you could see that they were confident that they'd still get it done, and they picked up some big results. Coming towards the end of the season, the results that they might not have played that well, and then they get wins, and that just shows a sign of a good team. And look, they've done the business in the start and the middle half of the season, and obviously coming towards the end, as I said, they did sort of take the step off it, but I think they've done enough. They had done enough, but look, what a squad, what a management. Delighted for Stephen Bradley, who obviously has had a tough year, and I think seeing that moment at the end of the game when his son was lifting the trophy, it's a brilliant moment, and it's a moment that Stephen Bradley will have for the rest of his life, and it was a brilliant moment, and it was brilliant for Shamrock Rovers Football Club, and what a way to end the season. So look, they'll obviously look forward to next season. What way will they go in the next couple of weeks? Who are they going to bring in? I'm really interested to see, because Derry are going to give them a right go now next season. So they've got to obviously get a bit more recruitment in, and they've lost Andy Lyons, so they've got to try and find someone to replace him, which I think he'll do well to do, of course, because he's such a good player. But yeah, look, brilliant season for Shamrock Rovers Football Club. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the mad thing is as well, Luke, is the fact that they had to negotiate 14 matches in Europe as well. That's half a season on top of practically half a season with a bit of traveling, you know what I mean? So
I didn't even think of that.
That's half a season, really. You know what I mean? Thrown on top of what they had to go with. And I think you said they took off the foot of the gas. It was more a case of they were getting wrecked at that point, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but you know what I mean, though, that to win, I don't think any other team could have won the league the way they won it. Negotiating what they've had to go through there, though, in Europe as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's I didn't even think of that. I didn't even know that stat, to be honest with you. It's the first time I'm hearing that. That's 14 games. It's a lot of football. It is a lot of football on top of playing 36 games in the league and games in cup, and they obviously got to the cup. They obviously went far enough in the cup as well. So it's a lot of football. It's a lot of football, and but that's the sort of what everyone would want. You know what I mean? And they would have wanted that. So I'm sure they weren't complaining about it. Absolutely not.
No, they kind of had the squad kind of built first. I think that was the point. They were geared.
They did, but as well, everyone can have the squad for that, but. Even if you get a couple of injuries, you don't have the squad then, you know what I mean? And they did get injuries. They didn't go through a whole season without getting injuries. And obviously, Jack Byrne and all, I know he had probably a decent season, probably not to the standards we did see of him previous, but like he had injuries, and he had a few injuries throughout the season, and he was supposed to be such a big player for Rovers, and he still was, of course. But that just showed that even the quality and depth they had, that they still had players who were going to step in and do a right job. And even the likes of Rory Gaffney, who stepped up brilliant this season. Young lad Farazaj as well, like coming in, you know what I mean? And he played a lot of football as well for such a young lad. He played big European nights as well. And that's what, you know, if you're coming through with Shamrock Rovers and you're good enough, that's what you're going to be getting. So it was good for that, like, and to see that younger lads can come through there at Shamrock Rovers, and he's still giving chances to younger lads, and even though he still has that mindset of having to win every single game, and to throw in the young lads, and he's doing really well. So look, brilliant season for Shamrock Rovers. That's a mad stat. That's a lot of football. It's a lot of football.
Unbeaten at home as well in the league. What was it? 17 wins at home and 2 draws. Like,
yeah, of course. And look, obviously, you look ahead now to the next season. And obviously, we can't really decide on. You can't make predictions for next season because we don't know what way clubs are going to move or whatever. But you know, you expect Shamrock Rovers to be up there again next season. Really, yeah. You expect Shamrock Rovers to be up there at the end of the season, next season as well. So that's going to be an interesting battle now next season. The Derry Shamrock Rovers. We're starting to really see a dominance in between two teams, and I think Derry are going to really step it up as well. So it's exciting. It is exciting. It's going to be exciting if you're a neutral, but I'm sure if you're a Derry fan or a Shamrock Rovers fan, I'm sure there is Rovers fans who are worried though of Derry coming up, and even the comments from the Derry chairman yesterday, like they are statement comments, you know, that type of way. That's what you want to see if you're a Derry fan, but if you're a Shamrock Rovers fan, I don't think you'd be wanting to see stuff like that. So it's interesting. It is interesting. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, brilliant season for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, brilliant. Good way to finish it off. Bit of a bumper show there, lads. So well done for staying with us. You're tired after that, I'd say. Guys at home, let us know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, hit your bell notification button, and thanks for watching again.